Feast your eyes on this human centipede of stacks. The STAXipede. Now, what you're looking at here is 5 different energizers, because they're not really called amps. They are amps, but they're energizers. 5 different energizers, and because I have 3 sets of stacks. My original set of 207s, an L500 and L700. And the L500 and 700, some people just happened to loan to me, and each one came with one of these amps. And since I had those, and I was done with the other Woo amp, I'm like, hey, Woo, you send me these? So, let me tell you how I've got everything hooked up. Feeding this conga line of glory is the JDS Labs OL DAC, which is brand new. And they contacted me and said, hey, we have this new DAC. And like, all right. And it's good enough for this test. So if that isn't a review of a DAC, just... So what do you think of the OL DAC? Oh, I hooked it up to a goddamn serpentine of Stax amps and used it as the DAC for all of them. So here's a source. I'm using the Woo-Wee here off of the Emotiva A100. And this whole thing is hooked up with one signal and no jumpers, which I'm really proud of. That would be an entire Twitter post if you ever follow me on Twitter, link in the description. RCA outs into RCA ins, RCA outs that loop out of the Emotiva over here into the SRM1, which is a vintage Stax amp. Then that jumps out to the 353X, which is a modern Stax amp. Then that jumps out to the 252S, which is the starter baby Stax amp. And finally, that chain ends here in the GES, which is their $1,600 tube amp. And obviously, you know, the Wii is powered by a speaker amp, so the first jump actually feeds this. So now we're looking at 5, well, I would say high quality, but really, electrostatic amps, I don't think low quality exists. I mean, I've seen and heard things about the COS amp, the COS electrostatic, that is like made of plastic and it looks really cheap. But, you know, I haven't heard it play with it, so I can't even inform you on that. What are we looking at here for price? This has its own separate review, and I was going to do this in a separate review. And this review was supposed to be for this amplifier slash energizer. But I know what's going to happen. People are going to look at this and say, well, how does it compare to this? And how does this compare to this? And how does this compare to this? And this. So everything. We're just going to do everything all at once right now. There's a couple things I've learned from this experience, because more than normal people would probably have one, and then they would go to someone else's house and they'd try another, and then they would decide, and their phone would make noise. But since this is not normal, I get to test all of them all at once. And I'll tell you the few things I know. Are you going to shush? You're shush? Yeah, you are. Shush. They all sound different. Or they all can sound different. And there is a higher and lower quality to it. This 252 was the one I started with. It came with my 207 Ultras. And if I'd never heard any of these other energizers, that would have been enough till the day I died. In fact, I was pretty insistent upon it because I had previously heard the tube version of this Stax amp, the 207, the 007 amp, the Mark whatever. Because I had a guy bring over the 007 ear speakers and they had the other 007 tube amp, and I'm like, all right, I'll try that out. And I was swapping mine and his on this and the other expensive big Stax tube. And I didn't like what the tube did. So I'm just like, there's no point in upgrading. This is the greatest it's going to get. Just leave it at that. Fast forward, when I have all of these now to choose from. And I will tell you that this is the dullest of the group. It smooths out the details. It got to the point where I was trying to adjust the levels between them, because it's a constant signal value. And put that back up because I can. I was trying to adjust the levels between them, and this is so dull compared to like this, which is a little sharp, that I was trying to edge up the volume, and then I'm listening to this one, and it's like the highs are a little bit too pronounced, so I keep trying to lower that, but the volume is the same. So they all do sound different. And if I had to go to someone's house, listen to this, then go to someone else's house 2.5 hours later, listen to this, and then go to someone and listen, I don't have the ear memory to really tell you what's going on, but if I could just go plug, then I could tell you. This is the best thing ever. Okay. Let me get one out of the way so I don't really have to reference it during the video. The woo-wee gets its own video, you know that. You know that it's dependent on the amplifier for how it sounds. And that there was only 2 amplifiers at the time that I thought were worthy to plug into this. The first one is the little TAC 101DA, 23 watts per channel, super clean. It's the one I prefer in it, and I use its DAC, even though I use its DAC off of optical. The second was that Crown 1502. Put that on there, and I'm like, that's clean, and there's enough power to deal with it. Currently, I'm running it off the Emotiva Base X A100, which arrived after that review was filmed, and it's probably the cleanest speaker amp I've ever listened to. It's at least as clean as the TAC, but more powerful, and look at it, it's super sexy. So this whole bundle here together is exactly the same sound as far as I can tell as the 353X, which is what I wanted. I wanted the future, not right now, but in a couple months, this L700 will be owned by me. That was also something that came from this. Now, the L500 and 700 Stax here are getting their own review video. This is just to get the amps out of the way. And when the L700s make it to me, I need to know if this was going to be enough. And it's not going to be enough because I put them on my head and then done that once. So this is a good, cheap alternative because I already own amps. I own speaker amps. I have enough, and this will work. So we're done with it. So when I plug into the 353X here, which is double the cost of the Wii, you have to consider that. Do you want to spend $925 plus tax plus shipping on this, or $500 on this, and just use an amplifier you have lying around? If you have to buy the amp, and that's $229. By the way, that thing is. You have to buy the amp, and then it sort of brings the price change a little bit less drastic. But you know, this is my benchmark as far as what sounds good, solid state. We're going to talk about the tube. The whole point of this video is we're talking about the GES. But I got to get this out of the way, which I just did by saying basically everything I say about that I did in my own video. This will talk about the back and the features, and this will talk about, you know, the quirks of it, and then this will talk about being fine if you need it. We're going to get to the tube. Let me unpause something. Turin brakes, clear blue air. Oh, that blew my mind. Okay. Setting a benchmark. This is what I basically did. I sat here and I listened to this, and then I listened in every other direction to set a benchmark. See, I want to raise the volume in this, but the sharpness of the highs, and oh, I should probably, before I go into the actual sound tests, these 3-ear speakers, Meanie, Miny, and Mo, or Meanie, Miny, and Holy God on Earth L700s, all sound different on these, or they all show you the differences at different levels. I'm going to it's not a spoiler of the review, because it's a review, and you're going to learn everything anyway. When I had guest over here, I had these two set up, and I was hearing something that I wanted to verify it through someone else. And he's pretty discernible. He's the one that loaned me the Z1Rs and the Focal Elirs. So it was like, hey, could you just tell me what you think about this? and I had this and this set up, just these two. And you plug the L700s, 1, 2, you know, whatever, however long he sat here for 10 minutes. And then he set the L500s through these two. And then he set mine through these two. And the L700s, the top of the line in that particular style, and frankly what I believe is the top of the line you ever have to go on Stax, because the 007s and 009s sound too much like regular headphones. These don't make as big a difference going from solid state to tube. What a tube does, what a tube should do, what this tube energizer does is it increases soundstage, makes things sound bigger and more airy. You back up from the music, and it is a pleasurable experience. However, that's what the L700 Stax do on everything. The 500s, which are essentially the 300s with better pads and headband, those benefit from the tube way more. That's why there's different pads in it, because you try to get that soundstage out of it. If I had the 207s here, my originals, without this massive pad mod, turning them into the ultras with the gaps for the thing, tubes would have possibly prevented me from having to do all this. This tube would have. Because the Stax tube, I think, was a little bit too refined. You need a little bit of dirt. You need a little bit of in your tube amp to make it be, you know, worthwhile. And that 007 tube amp that I tried from Stax was just... it sounded like the 252. It sounded almost exactly like the 252. And I was here with someone else, and we verified together. Then he sold that thing. So, this GES is worth it for tube sound on Stax. If you know already what your thing sounds like on solid state, and you can appreciate the gains. Because just like a regular, just like the dark voice up there, my advice for people who want to get into headphones is you need to have a solid state benchmark first. After that, you can go with tubes, and you could add EQ. As long as you can go back to a clean and straight and normal, and then you could experience what tubes do, the, you know, delays and the echo, and it's like, oh, it moves the sound back. Tubes do things that you can't just mess with a DSP and have it happen. It's mechanical. It's electronic. There's a load being applied to a vacuumed tube, and the way the sound happens changes. But you can't appreciate that if you've only heard tubes. Because then everything is just, oh, that's what it's supposed to sound like. And then you'll put on a solid state, and you'll be like, oh, this sounds weird. You got to know what the solid state solution listens to sounds like first. Then you could appreciate it too. Back to the things. So, L700s for the point of this test? No. If you buy L700s and you plug them into a hamster wheel, they'll probably sound like God is speaking to you. So, I mean, I had, when I first got the L700s, I had this and this, and I didn't bother hooking this up because it was still packed up, and I just plugged it into this, and I sat here for 2 hours listening to L700s on the cheapest Stax, and I was brought to tears by several songs. I mentioned that in that review, which I haven't filmed yet, so this is sort of odd. But those are what make the most difference. But if you've got the lower end ones, you've got some more narrow Stax, the tubes, like the GES here, can help you with that. The soundstage, it doesn't ever reach that sort of level of soundstage, but there's almost no improvement to it with the L700s on the tube. L500s, completely different. You put them on, here, we'll put them on. I want to keep putting things on. Oh, that chair sounds quality. Mozart, no, we'll get something nice. For a few dollars more, the Showdown. Oh, by the way, did I mention that everything pretty much sounds like Stax, no matter what you're powering it on? Because, we're already we're on top of Mount Olympus doing this. All the other headphones in the wall could just fight it out with the common people. Much fuller sound than this. This is a little thin in the low end. This isn't a very, very, powerful song, so the highs don't hit you, but It sounds like there's a filter on this that it's running it now as an MP3 versus the FLAC that it is. Which is mean and harsh, but it's just dulled. It feels like a pencil. You know when you don't sharpen your pencil and it gets really rounded and it looks like that, like giant marker you're writing with, and you're just too lazy to sharpen it? That's what that sounds like. This is a sharpened pencil. This is an overly sharpened pencil that's a little light in color. It's like light gray and not black. So it's still got detail. It's just a lot of it and it's losing the low end. And then you go... Just immediately, just the low end holds a little bit longer, and there's just so much more width to this. God, I love old Ennio Morricone. It's a great song to test with. All right, wait for that thing. Yes, okay. Backed it up. We'll do that same one again. Alright. There was a pre-bell. A bell rang in that giant thing. And there was a pre-bell, which I didn't quite pick on the tube. But the bell sounded so much bigger and more natural on the tube that it's like totally worthwhile. If I had the L500s or L300s, tube is all I would run it on. I'd know what it sounds like on this, and then I'd run it on the tube. L700s, I'm probably going to run solid state without a need for a tube. So it doesn't add enough to what is already a pretty much perfect sound. I'm going to just say that. Can I put you down without you falling? Okay, good. So sound characteristics. This sounds like whatever you plug it into. That A100 or the TX or a Crown, those are clean, and this will emulate that. This is clean. This is probably the cleanest of the STAXipede amps that I've listened to, and therefore probably the one you should look at. Now, price. I don't think I got into price yet. I have tabs open, which I show them all. This is $500. This is $1,600. This is $925. If you're buying this on its own and not part of some bundle, it's $320. And this you can get for about $450 shipped, because it's a vintage one. The main difference between vintage Stax stuff and modern Stax stuff is you look here and it says Pro Only. Pro Only. Well, these don't say it because they assume you have Pro Only. But all of these modern Stax are 500 volt. I think 550 volt. High. This one has a normal output for standard bias, which was, I think, 220 or 250 volt. So old vintage Stax need old vintage Stax amps, because you can't plug an old vintage Stax ear speaker into a modern amp or it blows up, because it's double the voltage. Okay. So that would be a reason to get this if you're going to buy something old, because you could find vintage Stax. You're all, looking at the Stax going, oh, they're $800, $900. You can get a whole bundle, this and an old Stax amp, for under $5 if you look hard enough. Just make sure that they're compatible with each other. Oh, I should point out, now when I got the 252S here, the power brick was 100 volt. And we're in America, or at least 46% of my viewing audience is in America. So we run 120, 117, 120 volt. So that black box back there, model the VT500J, is a step-down converter for Japan. So I plug it into my wall, put the switch on, and there's a 100 volt output. This needs it. And I'm pretty sure if I would have had the original transformer, I could have plugged this into that, and that's $40. And it's mine, I own it, because if anything else that comes along, I need it. So this needs a step-down transformer, or you need to change down your transformer. This needs a step-down transformer, because even if you buy it from Stax USA, it comes in the 100 volt version. And you don't want to run 117, 120 volts into a 100 volt unit. Bad things happen. This one, I have to show you the back of it. by swinging it around in a horrible, this is terrifying manner. I took these screws off, and this block here that looks like a Lego with an arrow, it's pointed up at 117, but down below is 100, and behind the plate is 220 and 240, and you could take this plate off, and this is a Lego brick with multiple metal pins, and depending on which way you place it and which orientation, it'll switch to any voltage around the world, which that's unique, but I've never seen that before. Like, I've seen switches, you know, 120 or 240, but I've never seen a four-way power switch, like line power adjustment. Might as well look at the backs of these now. I don't feel like disconnecting them. And by the way, they are warm. This is warm to the point where it's like, ooh, that's probably normal. And this one that I'm leaning on with the other STAXamp can cook your food for you. It's like it doubles as a cooker. All STAXamps have parallel inputs. They don't say in or out. I think mine says in or out on the little one. But basically, this is left channel, and this is left channel, and this is right channel, and this is right channel. It just loops through. That's how I'm setting this all up. You get a plug, you get a ground. In case you need to eliminate a ground hum, you have a ground terminal like a vinyl preamp would have. And that's it. This is serial number 7382. It's not very heavy. In fact, it's mostly empty. There's some capacitor, there's some, what's it called, parts back there? Power supply parts. But it doesn't like weigh what you think it weighs. It's probably like 75% of what you think it weighs. We've all seen my baby here. I have a whole review of that. Let's get jiggy with it. One of the benefits of this unit over everything else in the lineup is it does have a balanced input. Now all stacks are balanced out, like they're actually balanced. Left and right are completely separate because they have to be. So this is just a hookup option, and you get to choose down here. So XLR, the benefits of it in a home environment is you can make longer runs. So if your DAC, let's say I'm using the XDA2 here, if your DAC, you want to run XLR, you know, from here all the way down on the floor and around and put it on that desk, you would use XLRs. Better for long range. Now, the RCAs obviously do the same thing, bounce in and out. You have a ground terminal, you got a plug. 100 volts AC is the sticker on it. That's it. You can only run this 100 volt AC. The GES. Let's look at the GES. Let's flip you back over too. How hot? Yeah, that's. I don't know if it'll melt cheese. That'll be future episodes of Z reviews. If you support the Patreon enough, I could test all this expensive equipment with just melting cheese on it. That's a good goal. I'll set that. Power input, your 120, 220 switch. Then you have two RCA inputs, but they don't pass through. They are literally just switchable. So you could have multiple sources. That's all you get is a source check. I can't run another set out to power something else or to feed signal something else. That's it. They're really nice. And they're audio inputs, and then you pick a switch. The end. So, and then obviously the woo-wee, whatever amplifier you want to hook up, that is only RCA input. If you had the crown hooked up, you could use that with XLR or even the one that clicks in that I can't ever speak on. Or one of the other interesting benefits of the woo-wee is that amplifier could stay there, and I could just build speaker cables and put it 40 feet away because speaker wire is such high current. It doesn't really care. RCA signals are low voltage, so any interference is like a percentage of what it could get, and it picks up noise. XLR does error checking basically, where it sends a positive and negative 6 volt, and then it cancels out any discrepancy, or averages out any discrepancy. Speaker cables are just like, here's 70 volts. Woo! So it could just run forever. So that's if you wanted to, like, I don't know, bring this into your bathroom, you could leave your amplifier out in your bedroom. Let's go back to the tubes and the build. This is 14 pounds, and it's basically all transformers in here. Well, here's those same two transformers that are in here, and then a giant one, and then the whole case is bigger in aluminum, and it's just, It's like 20 something pounds. You pick this up and you know it's severe. This is light. This is less light, but still too light. This is obviously a joke. This thing is no joke, and this is severely no joke. When I got it, and I have an unboxing of these two, which I will link in the description, the tubes were interesting because it came packaged with two 4-packs. One of the 4-packs was these Western Electrics, which were brand new. Shiny boxes. You can see they're all made in America. I don't know what the cost is on those, but he foots it. Then these front ones are Sylvanias that are also made in America, but they were made in America probably in the 70s, because the boxes for these 4, every one of them was different, and every one of them was patinaed like it had been dropped in coffee in the 80s, and then like taken out, and then someone put it in their car to dry while they went to go see Cobra in theaters, and then they came out from seeing Cobra, and they're like, all right, that's dry enough, and put the tube back in it, and you know, they weren't damaged, but they're just, you could tell these 4 are new and these 4 old. And that makes me question a little bit, because I've had an issue with this particular thing and the tubes on it, that when I push it hard, like where I want loud to be, she'll break up. And I've gone back and forth with Jack Wu, and it's like, it's probably something to do with the batch of tubes, because they have to be, you know, matched. And so he would exchange those with me, but I'm like, I can get it loud enough to review it. But if this does happen, if you get one of these and you push it, talk to him about it. Talk to him about tubes, because I don't know how you verify tubes that are that old. How do you verify old tubes? And how do you match them? And how do you even get a supply of them? So I'm able to still enjoy the hell out of this. Just wish I could push a little bit more out of it. What are we missing? Oh, one of the features of, first of all, I need you all to be quiet while I shut this off. The metal just that. You could hear the machined, the build quality is Japanese, build quality. This is lesser Japanese because it's old, and that's just a box. And this is just, oh. I want this fascia. Too bad it doesn't continue into the box. This is still just, you know, sheet steel. Actually, it doesn't even, that's not metal at all. Is that metal? What, a magnet? Now that I'm actually like, because it feels, listen to it. Could just be the paint job. This has one of the cooler features, and I didn't think I needed this, and you probably don't need it, but you could adjust the balance. Unlike a knob where it's like left and right, the volume knob is actually broken up into 2 knobs. The outside ring of it is left and the inside ring is right. So if you hold one, you can twist like that on both of these STAXamps and adjust the level. And I don't know if that's something specific for the Japanese culture, or if people are using electrostatics on vinyl, which can have gain, you know, discrepancies per channel a little more. But you do get the ability to adjust the balance. And what I would do is I would set your output source to mono if you can. Foobar easily can be switched to mono with a DSP. And once you get it in mono, just twist this to the extreme. Be like, all right, all left, and then twist it far right, and then start doing this until you balance it in. And I'm not, if you turn them all the way down, and you could turn them both all the way down, they'll just reset. But you could adjust the balance if there's some sort of discrepancy between left and right, and you don't know about it yet because, you know, you're obsessive. You can get it just perfect. And then as long as you never push it all the way to the bottom and like push it hard, it'll stay set because the friction between the two is good. Let's plug my 207s in, because we've already discussed 700s. I prefer them on a solid state because the tube doesn't add enough. The 700s are perfect. They're perfect things. I was going to say headphones, but they're headphones and ear speakers and, you know, baby monitors. They're perfect for that. They're perfect for everything. 207s, the old school ones, since I've modified them, they take a little less of the charm of the tube, but still work. Space dandy. Slide the chair over. Yeah, these are so modified that I can barely tell the difference between tubes and solid states on it. Chewbacca. I just smashed. That was a first. Leave it up to the Stax. Yeah, a little bit leaner on the bass. A little bit more treble to bite on. A little stuffy, not nasally. But now we'll go, hold on, we'll go back to... Yes. This is definitely a cleaner amp than this. Oh, by the way, I want to point something out. Red power indicator, green power indicators, orange power indicator, fucking blue. Blue, green. At least they're not all blue. This particular track is not the best. Cake. I love cake, and not the type you eat. The type you consume through your ears. Cheap Trick. Oh yeah, the clarity bump from that to that is obvious. Is it a $600 clarity bump? That's my job all day, to sit here and tell you if I think that it's worth $600 for what I'm hearing the difference between that. If you're in the market for a cheap Stax amp, don't buy this. If it comes with your bundle, fine. Get yourself into the world of Stax. If you're starting out with just ear speakers and an amp, even this, with its slight too much treble and a little bit thin in the bass, the clarity is better than the cheap one. It's the most balanced. This is definitely the benchmark. Oh, there's my tube echo. Some songs just And this sounds like this. All right. Let's jump to the web pages because I have them open. It took all the time to open them. I'll link literally everything. JDS Labs OL DAC, $140 is... I'm going to shoot that off against the Magni Multibit in a future video, or in a video that came up before this. Maybe before this, because it would make more sense if you knew why I picked that one. Amazon has the Flex amp here, which is so good for headphones and just as good for speakers, and therefore powers this well. Link that. The Wii 500, the GES 1600, 252S, $360. It's just, now that I've listened to a used Stax amp, their higher end Stax amp, and then I know what the Woo... Don't buy that on its own. If it comes with your bundle, if it gets you into Stax, do it. Then sell that thing. There's $925 for this thing. And then here is this Energizer in silver. $425 plus 25 shipping, or plus 19 shipping. And there's a ton of, if I go back and back, look, here's one, here's this same unit with lambdas, with actual ear speakers for $680. And then here's this unit with original box for $2,000. It's not worth that. It ain't that vintage, folks. And let's just, if you just put Stax in eBay, let's see what we get. Oh, it's an older set. SR80s. Alright, yeah, you could do this on your own. This is not my, that's not my job. Now, what I can show you is there are different drivers above this. So, see these two on the bottom? That's here and here. There's 3 models above there and there. There's the tube one for $1,700 that I talked about, that I said I didn't like the sound of it. So, automatically the Woo GES wins against that. Then there's the 7272 for $1,600, and the 006 TS for $1,075. If anyone has any of those, except for the 007, I'd like to listen to both of those. And I think there's a new one out that's really wide, like it's this wide and as deep as these go. They are a very strange shape. They match pretty nice with the Mini X A100. You don't have to use them together. Close, close, close. Yeah, the GES, you get to pick the color is black or silver, and then you could do a one matched quad 12BZ7 for $64 for 4 pieces. So, boom, you can change it for actually that's relatively cheap. One matched quad, 4 pieces, $64. So that's what you'd probably need. Okay, close this. The Woo-Wee has its own video. I gave it its own video because it involves so many switching between amps. Thought it needed it, and we're good here. Thank you for watching. There will be a separate video for the L700s, L500s, which probably comes out after this one. I mean, you've sort of figured out from this review and other reviews that the L700s are basically God tier. But we'll get to them permanently in the video for that. Until then, all these are available. Well, this is maybe or maybe not available. Thank you to Jack Woo for sending these out. I will be buying a Woo-Wee since I have amplifiers. It's just I'm going to be on a waiting list because they're actually on demand. In demand. So everything here is going back, and I have to suffer through the world with my 252S for a couple months. And then once I get the L700s. But this is actually decent. Like, it's worthwhile. Over the 007 I heard, for it does the right things to the sound to make me want one. Tubes, you can't tune a solid state by ear. Tubes you can. I don't want to see any measurement graphs. No, just do it. Well, Patreon link in the upper right hand corner, wallpaper link in the description, all the links for all this stuff in the description, the link to my subreddit in the description. Yeah, just lots of stuff. All the stuff. Thank you for coming by. I gotta go take a nap.